Hello and welcome. You're listening to fifth episode of MS podcast. Without further ado, my today's guest, Theisman.
Hello, fellow citizens of the internet. Glad to meet you. I had joined this podcast with a friend of mine. He had been generous enough to welcome me onto the show. It sounded really quite interesting.
Wow, that was quite a mouthful. Thank you very much for joining me here today. For starters, tell the listeners a thing or two about yourself.
Well, my name in real life is Ryan Thomas. I'm not sure if I should tell it on the internet, but anyway, I don't see it'll cause much. And I'm from the United States. I'm from California, actually. And I'm currently in school. I'm still a student, and I guess I'm sort of a computer nerd, even though my understanding of actual computer functioning is very limited.
Nicely
And
put.
I spend most of my time. I spend a lot of time on in the internet, and I enjoy learning about things like history and playing games, and then talking to friends. And it's quite interesting to find new people from other countries and strike up conversations and friendships and camaraderie with them. And that basically about sums up my basic life at the current time.
Well, it seems you almost summed up the whole podcast, so we're about to end now. No, I'm just kidding. But you just summed up everything I got here. Good job. But let's start with one specific thing. Um, I chatted with you a few days ago about you being a fan of role-playing games in general
Yeah.
and being part of specific role-playing groups on Steam. So,
Yes.
can you tell us something about that?
Well, originally I joined this online role playing group on Steam called Star Wars. It was Star Wars role playing focused, and it's a long story how I joined. It took several games, several friendships, but eventually I got into it. And what you do is you create characters and you build fleets and armies, and you participate in an online setting for Star Wars that's been created. And I find it relatively fascinating because you have a very wide aspect of different things that you can do. You can design ships or characters, what weapons, and play out how you think the Star Wars universe would go. The problem is that a lot of times there aren't as many people, but that sometimes can even help it because it's a very limited base of people who just you can play with online. And so for me, it's better than just a normal game because in a normal game you're constrained by the options. So the options in the game you can only do A, B, or C. Or on the online role playing thing, you're able to do much more freestyle, and it's a lot more actually you designing the rules and parameters. And I also have played a variety of non-Star Wars things that utilize other games online. And then there's also some different just internet-based things like called nation states, where you build a nation and you solve various
All right, one
issues and
thing after
communicate
another,
with
all right?
people.
Slowly, slowly.
I'm sorry, I
It's
have a
okay.
nasty.
It's
I
okay.
have an
Just but let's take one thing after another. Well,
yeah.
we mentioned role-playing in general.
Mhm.
Why do you think that people are still in these days with these really detailed computer games are still interested in playing role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and the games that you mentioned, where you just participate in some specific universe?
I think that it would be because people like to be able to create stuff on their own. It's easy to play a shooter game online, and it's satisfying at times. But every time when you play, you're confronted by the fact that you're utilizing somebody else's choices for you. And so when you play the role playing games, you to make your own choices and your own decision and build up your own character. And it's a lot more complex, and it's a lot more and the long run it can be a lot more satisfying.
I
Even like
agree.
in
Hmm.
even just a game online where a role playing game online where most of the choices are where there still is not a infinite variety of choices. It's more than there is otherwise, and the story and it gives you a lot more emotional depth into the storyline rather than just running at full speed across a battlefield or something. You actually know what's going on, who your
I agree.
character is, and you know what sides are.
But
And so yeah, that's
role-playing
what's fascinating
games
people.
are, if you don't mind interrupting you, role-playing games are really interesting thing in the manner that some people just don't understand the topic at all. They just don't find it interesting whatsoever. And there's a small group of people that enjoy them. So it's totally underground thing, I would say.
I
What do you
can
mean?
see why people wouldn't like it. It does take a lot more effort to do, and if you don't actually put in that effort, then it can be boring or disjointed because at every point there isn't an easy option to do, and it's easy to lose track and get discombobulated and not be in contact with the people. So yeah, it's only suitable for people who really are interested in the game genre.
hmm I know you already mentioned it a bit, but I interrupted you. But how does this thing specifically works? For example, while playing Dungeons and Dragons, you've got one guy who's doing the dungeon master, the one who has the rules and who tells the guys what are they seeing, what are they experiencing, what are they stumbling upon. And but how does it work? For example, in let's say the Star Wars group you were part of at some point.
Well, there are a large variety of different rules that are stated. What it generally the main structure involved would there be one main leader who would be in charge of making sure that everything is going smoothly in the different groups. Then there would be the groups themselves, so the sub portions that would have their own leadership, and then that leadership would also have their own individual like admirals or generals or something, and so it represents a tiered sort of structure, and there's also links between the different groups. And but it that was one of the main problems with it, where it's very hard to organize organization on a limited level that we are operating at. And so most of the times the games themselves just you built stuff on your own, and it was mostly freestyle,
hmm
and then you just had mostly trust at the people that they weren't taking advantage of you and the rules that had been set up, and they were actually trying to participate in a fair and balanced manner.
So, if I understand correctly, as opposed to, let's say, Dungeons and Dragons, you have two sides that fight against each other, right? Am I right?
Yeah, two is the general number.
Right. Because in Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, you got just guys who play together, and usually they are at the same side, so it's much easier to uh, coordinate by the um, dungeon master, I would say.
You want to get into arguments with the other side too. That's
Yeah, I
a,
guess
the
you're right.
problem.
But
Humans are fractious species.
we're gonna get there eventually, but you're right. But anyways, so you don't have things like dungeon master or something like that in the groups. Someone who's neutral, who can just make decisions without being biased to one side or another.
Not entirely. Most of the time, in general, well, initially there were some who were like that, but generally later on, it relied on there had to be a person of sufficient charisma and authority to be able to make the rules, who was respected by everybody, and who could call and there was also we would call councils, for lack of a better word, just general discussions amongst people to try to determine the rules and to work out agreements and difficulties and to resolve disputes.
But I can imagine that this has to be the specific thing has to be like the problem that you get with these groups, this unbalancedness or something.
Yes,
I don't know if that's even is a word, unbalancedness.
it's very it's very easy for central leadership to lose control, and it's also very hard and it's also just very hard since if people decide that they don't like what the central leadership is doing, then they don't feel any um,
Obligation or something.
obligation to stay. Yes, they will gladly leave and join something else, or just leave the entire RP universe altogether on Steam. And so that's the main problem with the way we had things set up, where it was very freestyle, freestyle in some things, or it was very organized, and and the organized ones didn't always generally didn't last the longest.
Right. Well, still, it sounds like interesting thing as opposed to playing traditional first-person shooters all day, just to try something like that. I
Yeah.
might get into it eventually. But yeah, we mentioned role-playing games, but there's one specific thing that's actually the reason how I met you.
Hmm.
It's a game called Making History Calm and Storm. Can you
Yes.
tell us something about it? I guess it's a pretty interesting thing.
In essence, it's grand strategy game, or it's a strategy game in general, and you control a nation just before or during the Second World War, and your goal is to fulfill the objective in the game and to play the and to play the nation, and it's relatively historical accurate. In fact, they actually use it in some schools as a teaching instruction to help bring history alive, making history, so on and so forth. And so I've played, and a friend of mine convinced me to get it because he had it, and so that's the main reason and that's so I have the game, and you had it too, and so therefore, since you are interested in finding other people at it, then you were able to contact me.
Right. Well, that's what I do.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, I would say it's really interesting phenomenon in general because as you said, you've got like real events happening there. So a person who studying history or something can actually get some proper facts. But on the other hand, you can actually experience some gaming experience playing throughout the game
yeah,
because you build the nation, you make the decisions, and uh, it can happen in eventually it can happen in totally different way. Like I don't know, you start as U.S. and you join with I don't know Germans, and you decide destroying Russia or something. It
yeah.
gets pretty interesting eventually.
Mhm. Yep. It can be people are endlessly inventive, so if you look online at different things, there's always an almost endless there's almost infinite possibilities that people have discovered and worked on, and so you'll see people online who have taken over the entire world as the United States, not the people who are just sort of battling who are battling as, I don't know, no Poland taking over all of Europe, something
Right?
like that.
Yeah, that sounds like the funniest way if you take a small state like Estonia or whatever
Yeah,
and just
take over the world.
yeah, and control
The
the whole world.
Estonian world empire. That just
The
goes, yeah.
Estonian dictatorship.
The Switzerland.
Yeah, this the neutral state will become the ruler of the world. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised they're up to something, guys. Be
Yeah.
prepared.
They've been spending the last couple centuries luring us into letting down our defenses, only to then
Yeah,
take out the pikemen to take over the world.
yeah, just guys, don't believe Swiss people. All right. So, games in general. Do you enjoy playing games? Like, I mean the traditional ones.
Yes, I find it interesting because you, to a certain extent, you're transported to another world or dimension,
Well, you
or
definitely don't have to make up the rules. The rules are there. You just have to
yeah.
move in the.
I enjoy both computer games, and I also enjoy games with other people occasionally. Although it's hard because I live with my family mostly, and I don't go into like towns that much. So I generally don't have many like large numbers of people who I can play normal games with. And over the last couple of years, I admit I've waned in interest at times, but it's fun with like online games because you're able to it's fun participating with other people in it, and there's generally a pretty defined rule setting. And so, even though you're generally thinking about things, it's also to an extent, um, it's assuring, it's calming because you don't you're faced with the fact you're always faced with that no matter that you don't have to really innovate with new things because there's always just this because there's always just a different sets of possibilities and rules. So it's a very assuring thing within the
I
confines
understand
of the
that you're moving
games.
in some set of rules and you don't have to. You're just in some boundaries. You don't have
Yeah,
to think about crossing them because you can't. That's just the game.
yeah,
And you mentioned uh, that you don't have. There's a problem to find guys to play games with. Well, I guess that's what Steam Network is for. It's almost
yes.
like a gaming Facebook, I would say.
The
These
the
days.
inter- the internet, I suppose, really was instrumental and just sort of changed around my life because or not so much just the internet itself, but a specific portion of it when I started to just discover people who I could talk to, like you. Or I have some friends who, like, say, from Texas or India or Australia or other nations in Europe, and so for a long time I didn't really have anybody I could relate to. And then I discovered and then I eventually, after a couple of years of being on the internet, I discovered that there were other people here who I could communicate to. It took me a couple of years to figure that out, which obviously is very poor. It obviously is a rather lengthy amount of time to discover that. But yeah, I did, and so it was really a sort of life changing thing for me because it enables me to talk to so many more people who are very similar to me.
Surprising to me that every time someone uh, decides to do a podcast with me, they just start being too and really honest, and I really enjoy that. Just the honesty of people being able to express their deep thoughts and keep on. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you said that internet is a good thing to actually find people like-minded to yourself. Yeah, because honestly and obviously, if you're just living in some city, you're kind of limited. You have to find friends in some sort of area, you know. Now you
Yeah.
got just you can choose your own friends just from millions.
There's 2.4 billion people online, and so that you're pretty much guaranteed to find at least somebody who will be
At least one guy.
somebody. Yeah. I don't it's sort of it's just sort of, and then it's also just sort of interesting because you never actually meet the people, and a lot of times you don't even know what they look like. So you know, so it's very much more just of a meeting of minds rather than just and so it's a lot. And so while at a certain extent it is like a regular friendship, at the second extent it's very different from how it historically has been, where you know a person and you talk to them and you're
It's a
able
really
to
different
physically
experience. I
contact them.
agree with that, and it yeah, it presents something new to the humanity, something new that to experience, something totally different to anything else, I would say.
Yes.
These internet relationships, like friendships with people and conversations and stuff.
Mhm.
All right. So, what specific genres of games do you enjoy? I suppose strategies,
Yes, strategy. Okay, so I do play, yeah, action things, or
maybe
and then
first-person shooters,
yeah, and
right?
then yeah, and then online, and then I don't like stuff that's free online. I admit that I don't like to ask people to buy stuff for me since I'm a student, so therefore, and I don't and still in high school, and I don't have independent finances, so I like to be able to find stuff online that's free, and so I don't have to. So I feel like I'm more independent.
Hmm.
So generally, so I do find a lot. So that's generally one of the more important things for me, finding stuff that's free, so I can um, be able to get on my own fast, asking other people for it.
Well, this is gonna be a bit off topic, but that's a thing we used to mention with my another recurring guest, Narnius, and he's the guy I talk about gaming with, and you mentioned free games online. In general, I would say it's a good option for some sort of a gaming experience, but they tend to be kind of biased to guys who actually buy things, in the games. What do you think about this? About these
Um, or
systems?
I think it's well, they didn't the companies that develop the game need the revenue source.
Obviously.
So I think that it's allowable. It does give rewards to people out who want to expend resources on the thing, while at the same time, as long as it doesn't require you to actually spend money on that, then I think it's fair. Then I think it's in general fair. Not overly biased or unfair. I think it just or it's as fair as it can be, or in the allowable circumstances of the realizations of the situation that the people do need to make a profit, and they do, and because if you just have it for free, then obviously they're not going to make money by selling it. So yeah, I think that a free online game it's naturally more fair because it has a much more broader audience base that it can go to. And so even if and I mean even I guess if even if it is unfair a little bit, you are playing the game. I mean, if you had to buy it, if you probably you wouldn't have it anyway in the first place if it wasn't for the fact that they've offered it for free.
Well, yeah, because as we mentioned a lot of times with Narnius, the most of the games are pretty unbalanced, because you got two sorts of players, two big groups. You got the guys who have no problems and just pump the money into it, and sometimes even spend more money than just by paying some monthly fees on World of Warcraft or something. They
Yeah.
spend hundreds of dollars every month just paying for the digital stuff in the game, and you got the other sort of guys who just don't want to pay anything, and they're called free-to-play guys, and there tend to be a big differences between these two groups. So I would say it's really hard to find a game that provides some sort of a healthy balance between these groups. You know,
Yeah.
at least that's what my experience with these games is about.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what free games do you play specifically?
Let me look. I have my Steam
Let me
list open.
look.
Look. It's one named Tribes Ascend. There's one named Team Fortress 2.
Oh yeah,
There's Star Trek Online, though I haven't played that for a while. I have the limited edition of Star Wars The Old Republic. I don't have to pay money for it, though. There's something called Spiral Knights. I forget what that was.
yeah. I think a
Um,
friend of mine plays that one. But you
yeah,
mentioned Team Fortress 2, and again, I must say I'm a fan of Valve, but I'm not a fanboy, so I'm not here to do an advertisement or promotions for them. But the Team Fortress 2 is I guess that's the only game I ever played that has this um, micropayments system, where you can just pay some,
no,
just
and
buy
get it
just
items
buy
in the game.
something for the game. And on the other hand, it's still balanced, and you just can't even tell the difference between a player with the things and without them, because they're
Yeah,
just graphical. It's just like hats or clothing or appearance of the players, and not a
they did a
specific
good
things
job
in
of
the game.
it. It's very popular across Steam.
You're eating there, aren't you?
Oh no, I have a cat brush that I was just putting my fingers across it in the way that was opposite of the grain of the thing, so it's creating a noise.
Right.
I have two cats, so I have a brush for them, though I generally lose it, so I don't use it that often.
I
I
enjoy
am
these
terrible.
little things that differ these podcasts from the other professional ones, because this is the reason why I do it. It's fun. All right, where were we?
I think I was
Games.
finishing up with that free online thing.
All right.
And then there's the final one, something Lord of the Rings, I think. And then Dota 2,
All right.
and then um, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Let's move a notch. When you introduced yourself at the very beginning of this, you mentioned being, I guess you mentioned being a history fan, am I right?
Yeah, I very much enjoy the study of history,
That's actually what kind of comes with playing of making history
making
common
history.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
You can't be even a bit interested in history and playing that game because it's just about it in a way.
yeah.
All right. So, what do you think about people actually? What do you think about importance of people learning history? Do you think it's still valid? Because lately, when people talk about education, people tend to concentrate on practical knowledge. Like something that they can apply in practice. And get a
I,
job with it.
yeah. I think that history is important for people, because history is the study of what people have done in the past, and we have to learn from what people have done in the past to be able to learn what we're going to do in the future. And so obviously it's not going to be like important for everybody. You're not going to wake up one day and go, gee, as I get out of bed and go to brush my teeth, I know that I've dramatically improved my efficiency by studying about the Byzantine Empire. But at the same time, it does offer an important way for people to see how things have gone in the past, and it's also just beyond that solution. It's an intriguing subject because it's basic because the amount of just events that has occurred is pretty much infinite. I mean, sure, it's very fun to see what's going on in the present just looking up on the news. I guess that's just sort of me. I mean, I fun to look at the news, but it but there's a huge amount of historical data it's almost never ending, that you can always look through, and there's always more stuff to learn.
Right. Well, it's kind of tricky topic, this one, because it's really hard with history. You never know that you're actually getting the right data, the right information. It
Yeah,
tends to be pretty hardcore with like these as you mentioned, Byzantine Empire, or even with the Greeks, and Romans, because you
They have a tendency to over to make up stuff
yeah
within their written
maybe to
histories.
inflate themselves a bit
Yeah.
to look a bit more interesting, and even with presence,
Hmm.
and now you just it's really hard to get like facts because now everything involves advertisement and everybody's trying to make himself look good. So just by checking out events of, let's say, just let's say war in Iraq or Afghanistan, it's still pretty sensitive topic, and you still can't find the specific data, what really happened, why it happened, and things happening there in the war.
Yeah. Uh, and yeah, you can and a lot of times you can find out just be a couple years later after whatever the horrible disaster that you're trying to learn about has already happened, i.e., 2003 invasion of Iraq, and so that's just sort of yeah, everything sort of on the pretty much all the major news sources by their very definition can be extremely biased towards a particular vision or a particular side, and so that does make sorting the truth out from just the normal banter much more difficult than it would seem on the internet. The internet is pretty much infinite knowledge, but at the same time, not all of that knowledge and information is true or valid.
Well, I think that's a you just mentioned a really interesting thing right now, and the fact that one has to learn how to navigate on internet lately. I think that's going to be a really important thing to learn in
Hmm.
next years, because if you want to get some sort of some knowledge, some information, internet is a great place to be. But on
Hmm.
the same in the same way, you can just find complete nonsense.
Yeah, and it's growing ever more complex as more people go on, like pretty much exponential growth, and so that just adds more and. As the and then even more beyond that, the people who were initially on it they're now learning and they're teaching other people. So it's so those people are able to create more and browse more and see more, and so that's made so that the internet is far more sophisticated than it ever was in the past. The past that's like what two decades really that it's all ever that it's completely been that it's been functional for. I mean, it wasn't like
I
in
guess, yeah.
early 1990s that the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court made the decisions that enabled it to become relatively widespread and practical.
Hmm. Well, I think that this is going to be a really important thing for maybe even for schools to teach their children how to actually navigate on internet, how to search for information, how to really find what's relevant and what isn't, because anybody just can post something on internet with a pretension that it's true.
Yeah.
So that's going to be pretty interesting in next years, as I already mentioned a few times.
Mhm.
All right. What do you think about self-education? You mentioned that it's really important for a person to learn history. Do you think it's important to educate yourself, like throughout the life, not just on the school, as opposed to what people do lately?
Yeah, yes. When you learn on your own, then that actually and you're wanting to learn on your own, it by definition makes the learning experience more efficient or just more enjoyable. And learning on your own it's important to just always be exploring and always trying to find new stuff because it's well one it's mentally rewarding because you're able to accumulate lot more data that you can talk to with other people and so they learn more and so it spreads out of expanding ripples of knowledge across society. But it's vastly important to continue to learn more so that your mind remains rather what's the name of it fluid and willing to learn that that you're and then just in it's just hard to know. I can't really stress how important I find just that drive to learn for society in general. How because it's one of the most important things, just one of the most important human qualities that really separates us from anything else that on our own we're capable and want to assemble more knowledge and information and create ever greater complexity of such knowledge. And so really when you're learning, that's part of the essence of what makes you human.
Right. Because at least, well, it seems to me at least that uh, society becomes more and more educated, but on the other hand, they just educate themselves just because they feel that they are gonna need it, just for getting a job, you know. So it
Yes.
seems like that's the main reason why people are into going to these to high schools, to colleges, universities, just to get some sort of a degree to be able to get money, and
Yeah.
not because they just want to gather information. What do you think?
Yeah, most people that sort of now we originally set up most of our public education systems as part of that, not so much to build an enlightened citizen base, just to teach people what work. I think that was I remember I reading something just vaguely about that, like of Adam Smith, one of the he was the economist from really regarded as one of the fathers of capitalism. How we did want public schools, but at the same time it was mostly trade schools, and so that's sort of what our education system was founded on. And of course, it's necessary, but at the same time, for truly being able to learn on your own and exercise your own mind and create your own opinions and your own ideas about the world in general, that takes self-learning and self-knowledge. Because of course you can just hear somebody in class and then you can get their opinion, but to actually develop your own opinion, you have to choose to learn more.
What do you think about these new kind of unofficial but really interesting and alternative ways of educating people, like for example, Khan Academy?
I think they're a wonderful idea personally because it's because well, first, just the internet in general, it's enabled a revolution in the knowledge of all people. You don't have to go to the library anymore. It's just pretty limited. And so when you go for the things like the Khan Academy, it enables any student anywhere to just be able to go online, watch a video for 10 minutes, and then instantly they have a working basic knowledge of the subject. And so online education is immensely more flexible, and it can be immensely more efficient when done properly. And so it's a very positive development over the traditional school system, which is good for providing some things into it. Just human contact is an important thing, with social context, and then also the teachers who are drilled in providing the information to our customer students. But the online stuff, that advantage of flexibility and that advantage of availability of knowledge, that one teacher can provide information to millions of students, theoretically,
Right.
provides a vast advantage for internet education.
I think it's a really beautiful thing just because of the original things that internet was based on, you know, just to spread information to everyone,
Hmm.
and it kind of defines the whole thing about free education for anyone in the world with the internet.
Yeah.
You know, I guess there's many things to actually learn. You can start with the basic arithmetics, you know, just one plus one plus one, and there are much more developed things like astrophysics and
Hmm.
um, just high school physics. I guess it's almost all the curriculum, all the stuff you got on high school, you can find there as well. Obviously, it's unofficial, but if one is just interested in becoming better in something, it's a great system to participate.
It also has the advantage that since the knowledge can be assimilable by anyone, it's the much more to say I like this term that I don't remember where I got it, the democratization of knowledge. I think I was referring to Wikipedia, where because anybody can enter such knowledge, it enables an immensely expanded base. So to an extent, we all are responsible for providing more information and teaching others. And it isn't just a select few in the educational facilities who I immensely admire and respect teachers for the effort they put in every day with oftentimes with low work wages for long hours to a bunch of school children who don't want to be there and yet still
Mm.
manage to produce relatively educated people for society. But online, since it's we're all able to provide more knowledge and to teach others and to discuss and debate. So that's really the first. That's really a whole new level for education and a unique process so far in his history. Because of course we've had stuff like that just before, with like like just normal events in society. People pick up stuff, but it hasn't. But it has never been, I think, to the true level of immersion that occurs on the internet.
Well, if you break it down to the very basics, you can just say that now if you are interested in accumulating or just learning things, you now have the place where to get the information, I would say, as opposed
Yeah.
to years before, where obviously you had libraries and you had people who were um,
Hmm.
who wanted to share the information they got, but now it's much more much easier, I would say,
Yeah, much more efficient.
and efficient, obviously. All right, well, let's mention something completely different. Nerd culture. What do you think? What do you think
Just
about the new kind of about the new and completely different culture that springs on the internet? You know, just by being on the internet, it's becoming a completely new culture, almost like a counterculture to the traditional mainstream thing. What do you think?
well, I'm sort of a nerd myself, even if I don't think I've completely fit the digital model. Because when you generally think of a nerd, you think of a person who does know a lot about computers and how they function,
Right.
which generally isn't something that I do, even though I think that I've gotten better over the years. But yeah, just that just the idea of a nerd is somebody who loves information and knowledge and learning, and it fits perfectly into the internet because the internet is basically the manifestation of of the power of knowledge, and
I guess you're right. Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's a positive development because it's people who want to learn, who are intellectual, and it doesn't deal so much with social constraints anymore, and so yeah, that it fits in well on it, and it's a positive development in my opinion.
I think that I maybe used the wrong name for this. I mean, the whole internet culture. How do you perceive it? What do you think about it? You know, because
It,
there's something completely different and completely. If you compare it to traditional culture that you can see in television or you can just go on a concert or something, I would say it's completely something completely different.
yeah,
How do you perceive these things like YouTube videos and things
mhm.
like that, and memes maybe?
It represents that people for the first time are being able to connect to others who are like them in large numbers, and it's much more visible than before. And so, even if there's just a small, tiny group of people interested in a single subject, they can form together in a group and create a culture about that. Whether that's exactly a good thing, as we've seen with the pop up of different like fascist or white power or communist blogs on the internet, that's debatable. But at the majority of time, it provides a much more greater outreach for people to put in cultures that weren't possible to exist before, because there would be no way to bring together a scattered, disparate grouping of people across the country to discuss an issue in the numbers that are now available. And that's what happens. That's just the general thing of the culture of just a small, tiny grouping that can come together like a free association of humans and for whatever subject they're interested in. And so there's a what other things? There's just nerds. There's, I think, who are the people who are ridiculous? The brony people. Yeah, the brony people.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
going
the
to get there.
My Little Pony people. And then so yeah, even
Because
so
you
there's
got specific subcultures just springing out on the internet, because even before with subcultures they were existing, but they were just by meeting people in
mhm,
real life. And now you got subcultures, just completely different subcultures that weren't before, just existing now, just thanks to the internet and thanks to the fact that people can actually chat with each other and talk with each other in real time
mhm.
with the internet. Yeah. So specifically, what do you think about the new subcultures exactly? For example, bronies, the fans of show My Little Pony?
I don't see any problem with the majority of the subcultures. I think that a lot of people view them as being different or liking things that are away from the normal social context, and they just dislike, despise, or enter here, insert hatred for these groups. And I don't see why people do that because the groups themselves are it's a flowering of people who love a subject and are interested and would work together and develop their own ways of communicating and just and ideas and knowledge. And I think and so for this the Bunny faction, I have no problems with them.
Right.
I mean, I can see that there's like some individual aspects of it that are um, bad. I remember like there were some Steam groups that I remember seeing, and I was sort of appalled by some of them. But I think every culture has some outcasts in it that are generally like not liked by the group itself. And so I think in general most of that when the culture itself or the subcultures are positive, and I don't see why people dislike them to the extent that they do.
Well, it's a really sensitive thing, I would say. It's really specific, and as we mentioned before, it's really hard to actually get uh, data that are true about things happening lately, and we just can't tell what is happening with this specific subculture. I generally think that the core of the bronies were just they started the whole movement with the idea of loving and tolerating everyone. It's almost like I sometimes call it s- like a new hippies movement almost. You know, just
Yeah,
I guess
as
there's
long
some
as the
problem with your
basis.
microphone.
Oh, what is it? What's happened?
No, no, it's okay now. I would
I
say that
was
the,
sorry,
the,
back now.
the core of the movement is cool. It's just people who are trying to spread positive movements and positive vibes and positive ideas. But
Sure.
now, because now it's popular, now it's almost a mainstream thing, because you can see bronies everywhere. You can see pictures of from the show anywhere. They tend to post it around on internet. It's almost it's on every corner of the internet,
Mhm.
and because of this, many people tend to call themselves bronies because they find it cool and interesting, and because of that, the whole subculture is movement is completely changing. It's now it's really different, and as you mentioned, there are specific outcasts in every group, and what people are kind of appalled
Mhm.
considering bronies is the fact that some of them are really almost like sexually attracted to animals,
Oh yeah, I've seen
and
that.
that's why many people think that bronies are just a group of people who are zoophiliacs, or something like that. But that's not true. Well, there are some specific people who are like that, but it's not what the subculture is about. That's what I think, at least. But
Yeah.
yeah, you got outcasts, and you got really positive people in every subculture and every culture and every state and every group, I would say. That's how it is. That's the social structure, I almost like. All right,
Yeah.
so that was bronies. I think we're almost at the end of the podcast, so let's maybe talk politics a bit. I know
Uh,
it's a bit sensitive topic, but what do you think in general about politics happening right now?
um. Well, currently in my country, the main problem is politics is split into two factions that are very unhappy with each other: the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And generally, the differences that separate them are at the same time a gaping chasm of doom and misery, and at the other time very small. And in general, I find politics very interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's like, I guess that to a certain extent, it's because politics is basically institutionalized violence. So instead of like a football game, politics would be my version of like letting out barbaric instincts or whatever. And so
Interesting.
and so that's and so I myself, as are the majority of younger people in America, would am more affiliated to or prone to support the Democratic Party in the United States.
Right.
My view of the matter is that the a public sector or government itself, so long as it's efficient and made sure that it works properly, we should obviously make sure that it isn't wasteful and just spending our money for no benefit, that can provide useful services that reduce poverty and provide innovation and um, and do stuff that people on their own aren't able to do. There was a quote by Abraham Lincoln about that, how the legitimate purpose of government is to do for people what people are unable to do on their own or they cannot do so well themselves.
Hmm.
And I like that quote, and that basically sums up my view of government in general, and that's why I'm more of a member of the Democrats, because I don't think, even though I do admit that the Republicans are probably right on some issues, even generally I just say that, and I don't really explain which views themselves.
Right.
And and I think that in America, even though we do have that gap between the two parties, we're still close enough that we still all believe in the same basic core principles. We all believe that we're all equal, and we all believe that if you work hard, then you should be able to make your way to the top of society. And we all believe that we should all enjoy the American dream as much as possible. And I think that in America, the two
If there
political
is even
parties.
something like that.
Yeah, there's a joke that it's why do they call it the American Dream? Because you have to be asleep to believe in it.
I
Yeah,
heard about that just a
yeah,
few days ago somewhere. Not sure where, but
yeah.
I
I
heard.
think it was from George Carlin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
a
probably where I
brilliant
heard that.
a brilliant man. Sad that he is gone now.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that the main goal between the political parties is we all differ on which objective we want to go to. And I think that in other countries I think there are greater differences between America and some other countries. America is generally one of the more conservative of the American style obviously conservative, liberal. The two main American spectrums differ by country, and so by the world standards, it's more right wing of the nations. But I think that overall, amongst the first world, there isn't really a gaping difference where we all want what's best for our nation, and we all mostly agree on a basic core set of principles that we want to go there, but if we have very vehement um, disagreements about how about what exactly the variations on those principles will be, what the economy will
I agree with
be
that.
like, and what
And
our social structure will be.
but
And
as you, yeah,
I think
proceed.
these disagreements are good, even if even if I do think my side is generally right more often. The disagreements hone out which arguments are bad, and they're important to the functioning of a free society.
I agree with that, but as you said, as you called it, first world is, I guess these topics and problems what we had to have to sort out lately are pretty similar. So I would say there are not that big, there's not a big difference in general in life and in political life in America and let's say Western or Middle Europe or something, you know.
Yeah,
But still, mainly lately because we were all kind of sorting out these problems that came with economical crisis, you know, and the
yeah,
depression. So lately it seems like it's almost the same everywhere you look.
yeah. Well, the U.S. is like has some pretty outlier subjects in some levels. For example, one of the main things that has been around for a while has been like our healthcare system, which is very different from everybody else's in the first world. But we all do have a general idea of how we want our society and our economy to be like, even if though there are, as I said, very major differences. The real like main disputes happen when you reach the more undeveloped nations of the third world, where some of them do have the same opinion about things, and they are developing and they are leaving the whatever problems are, but at the same time there are a lot of regions that aren't that way. And like I don't want to pick on any particular group, but like for example, but there are like for example some of the more radical Islamic nations. Not all of them. There are some like Turkey, for example, has made progress over the years, even if that's a long way to go. Where the long-term political values that we espouse are different, and they're not, and unlike in the first world, they're not as compatible.
Right.
And so that's one of the main problems. Or ideologically, we are opposed, and to be honest, I do think that the West has a better political system and a better long-term dream and goal for society than some other countries in the third world that don't believe or don't have a seems to be that don't have the same view of equality for all their citizens, rights for their people, and a state that's firmly grounded in respect for all of its beliefs and all
Well,
of its citizens' goals.
the idea of equality is really nice one, but I don't want to be overly negative. But you can. We all know that it's not that. It's not that equal lately. Mainly because of
Uh,
the gaps between the
Rich and
let's
poor.
let's say yeah, just rich and poor. There, it seems like there's no um, the middle way of doing things. There's just people who are really poor, people who are really rich, and it seems like the gap is becoming bigger and bigger. Although this is the thing you can hear on the news, but it seems like that it is. That's how it is. If you just look outside and just meet with people and talk with them, it seems like that's what's happening, and not just in America. I think it's happening everywhere. Now the question is how to prevent this and how to do it. Obviously, no one is interested in doing some sort of a, let's say, going back and trying some style as communism or
Yeah.
full-blown socialism. But
We
obviously,
must agree
I
that
would
that is wonderful.
uh, but I would say there should be some regulations to at least prevent from prevent from gaping it even more than it's gaping right now.
Well, there's a couple things that are there's apparently the main two factors that are driving it. A lot. Well, there's also some other factors. Is that one is technology, because it's making it so that automation is replacing a lot of workers, and so that's carving out a lot of the old high-paying jobs, and we're not, and providing a lot greater profits, and then globalization, with a lot of where workers get where a lot of third world countries do further carve out that high paying thing. So a lot of the former skilled workers get shifted out to surface sectors, and they don't earn as much, and that doesn't and so and along that's one of the main reasons. There's also and also whatever the financial and economic system where deregulation, and then also some regulations themselves do lead to some problems with that sector. So apparently the main thing with that is to make sure that all the regulations work efficiently and in their intended goals, that we properly educate people so that they're able to retain their jobs, and that we work to in the long run to bring the third world countries as much up to our level as possible, so that therefore we can all concentrate on it as one. Because unfortunately, as much as I sometimes think it would be as much sometimes as such as I like the idea of just walling us off so that jobs don't go overseas. Unfortunately, that would be it would hurt us a lot as well, probably more than whatever the benefits would be, and would hurt everybody. So yeah, we basically the main thing is to try to think of it on a world scale with world solutions. So of course implemented on a national level, and and just everybody and there's a lot of different laboratories by nation, because everybody will adopt their own view of thing, and that'll help come up with ways to improve situations in the long run.
Well, in general, I agree with that because I know it's kind of unpopular view, but I would say by all this globalization happening lately, I think we should slowly stop thinking about us as countries and should embrace the fact that we're a planet or a world.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't say that walling yourself or just building barricades and stop, globalization would be a good decision. I think it's a good way. If you look at the positive factors, I know that uh, you know uh, some people are losing jobs and some people are unhappy that someone with a brown skin comes from, let's say, India or somewhere and works instead of him. But yeah, I think I think it's a positive thing from my view, from my perspective.
Even
Anyways,
with the
yeah,
inequality in general, we are all around the world. The poor people are becoming richer and wealthier, and And so even though I disagree with some of the aspects of globalization, and I find it abhorrent that so many people in the world are in such abject poverty that they're still in slums, I think that in the long run, it is still our best bet that we still have. And I'm just hoping that it doesn't take too long before we all have a roughly similar national income, so that we could so that and a roughly similar political system too. Because no, I mean, obviously there's a lot of variations in democracy, but I want so that all the people in the world don't, so that nobody is still ruled by a dictatorship or um oligarchy or
Hmm.
plutocracy,
Right.
so that we can all we're all entitled to our human rights and
Yeah.
freedoms across the globe.
Call it
So that's
whatever
just
you want, but I agree that everyone should have some sort of some basics, some basic income that would
yeah.
allow him at least some start. Obviously, socialism isn't a just full-blown socialism isn't a great idea, I would say, and but you have to implement some of the aspects from the left-winger ideas, to actually make, I would say, working society.
Yeah,
That's
we
at least
shouldn't
that's
look at
my
that.
opinion, and there should be some basic income that you should get when you lose your job, at least.
Yeah. So the safety net, I'd like to
Yeah, as you call it,
it's the only
safety net. Yeah. All right. Well, what do you think about some topical things happening? All right. For example, Kim Jong-Un and
North
his,
Korea.
yeah, and his
Uh,
brilliant
well,
things happening.
I don't think North Korea will exactly declare war on us, though I might be wrong. I know foreign policy expert, but I think North Korea they need to prop up their regime because they have the new leader in charge. They want to try to get more foreign aid because they don't have enough food, and they want to and then also it's just North Korea is insane. I think. I mean, I don't want to. I doesn't. I Some people think differently that they're acting on the same impulse, but I really do think that they are slightly insane and they are slightly deranged. That
Come on,
there
it's
is.
it's it's your interview. Well, it's about yourself. Just tell what you feel. That's how it should be.
Yeah, and so, but I do think that they do have enough sanity left that they won't pull the trigger and try to invade and try to launch missiles at our bases overseas,
Well, I
or
would
if they,
personally think it's completely stupid, what they do, because it doesn't even make sense. It
yeah,
doesn't even make logical sense to me. When something like this is happening, I'm trying to imagine what would I do if I were in his boots, But I just can't grasp the concept of what he's trying to do. Talking
mhm,
about Kim Jong-Un.
the and so I don't think in the long term we should back, or not so much back, but one of the long term goals or ideas that would be beneficial would be if North Korea was transformed into a democratic. At least reasonably capitalist, a mixed economy, as it's technically called, state that respects its citizens' rights and freedoms, and because they're one of the main problems in the region. Unfortunately, China does back them up because they're afraid that we'll plant troops right on their border, and then
Mm.
as a stepping point for war, which is understandable. Unfortunately, we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, and so some people don't really trust us to be around them as that much, especially given that China and the United States always
He's a
are not
fun
always our
partner to
best
be
friends.
around.
Yeah, but and yeah, I think it'd be best if they either disappear or not so much disappear, but transform into a more benevolent government.
Yeah, honestly, I don't care that much about that. Well, honestly, no, I don't want anybody to get bombed. I don't want them to launch missiles. But what I care most about in this specific problem is the people, the not indoctrinated people in North Korea who are actually,
The ones who are just
yeah,
suffering everyday
who are,
citizens.
yeah, I was just waiting for your microphone to stable down. The ones who who are suffering, who are experiencing the hunger and the problems, and who know that there's something wrong going on, and
Yeah,
the ones who know that it should go in different way.
yeah.
That's
It'd
what
be
I think,
best
at
if they
least.
were able to become regular citizens of the world.
So yeah, so I'm not a big fan of invading other countries, not just by America, by anyone, but obviously, um, I'm not sure in this matter. I'm really sorry about the people starving there, and on one hand, I would like to America to intervene,
Mhm.
to go there and to help them at least a bit. Although they would use probably their traditional planes, and many civilians would die, as
Yeah,
as as the same thing would happen
it's
before
a hard
and
it's a
before.
hard thing to know with such terrible with these nations around the world and what option to take.
But on the other hand, I'm no big fan of war. In general,
Yeah,
I'm pacifist, so I'm not a big fan of bombing countries and sending troops there. So yeah,
yeah, generally
it's
counterproductive.
yeah, it's not just it's counterproductive, but people are dying in general,
Yeah,
and that's I'm not a big fan of dying.
yeah, so I want to live.
Yeah, let's live. Let's enjoy our lives. Yeah, it's kind of basic thought, but it's how it is. Just live and let live, I guess.
I was hoping. I'm not sure if this would really happen, but if I that given the way medical technology advances, that if I live long enough, then they actually might be able to come up with something that would really dramatically prolong or your
Some
natural
cyborg
life.
shit.
Just I'm not sure. Just like semi immortality, like not the type where you can't ever die, so you're able to die, but you don't die of old age. And so and of course that probably won't happen. But I just love the idea of that happening.
That
'Cause,
would completely transform the idea of the society, because
yeah,
now when you do something bad, they tend to, or if you do something, then people tend to threaten you that they're gonna kill you. And now it would completely revolutionize the whole concept of threatening.
yeah. Well, I think I don't know. It's just I had a book which had something I had multiple books actually which have dealt with that of immortality or and where we discover technological immortality, and it's very interesting how the societies work because they're similar in some cases, and at the same time they can be very different in just the way they think about things.
Hmm, I guess you're right.
Because if in the base, that's our basic entire life or idea. Because I mean, basically, it's your every organic person, any organic species on the planet is at every second of their life confronted with the fact that at one point they will die,
Right.
and if that is removed, then that would be the first time that's ever happened, and that would be a unique observance.
Well, let's end it with a great positive thought of people dying.
But let's think of the people who, if we do come up with that thing, and people don't have to die of old age again.
That would
Well,
be
we'll
cool.
think of that. Yeah,
That would be cool, but on the other hand, people live and people die, and if
yeah.
just people stop dying, well, we should really start colonizing Mars and anything else, just to send them
Population.
somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess we exhausted all the topics we had for tonight. Is there anything more you'd like to add?
Not that I currently believe so. I think that it was a very intriguing and well-rounded podcast. It was a radio interview. Maybe we could call it that. Maybe I'll just give that its title. I mean, it's technically incorrect, but that's what I like to think of it as.
Oh, it almost
And
sounds like a compliment. Oh, thank
yeah.
you.
Great radio host of the distant land. I must congratulate you on the most brilliant interview of all time.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. So, thanks guys for listening. Once more, thank you very much, Theisman, for accompanying me. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Now, dear listeners, if you enjoyed the podcast, like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, if you think you have something interesting to say and would like to appear on one of my podcasts, send me a PM or contact me on my email address that you can find on my YouTube or SoundCloud profile. It depends on what platform you're listening. So, yeah, that's all, folks, and goodbye.